Hey, what's going on, Jam fam? So, if you live under a rock and you didn't check YouTube and you didn't check the game's patch notes, then you probably missed that there were some balance changes today. So, I just want to go through who got buffed, who got nerfed, and what bugs got fixed. If you do know about the balance changes, let me know what you think about them down in the comments, but we're going to go through all the changes. I'll give you guys my thoughts on it as we move through this video. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to kick things off with the buffs, and the first brawler we're going to talk about is Rico. Now, according to my math, which could be wrong, I'm not like a mathematician or anything like that, so correct me if I am wrong on these numbers at any point. But according to my math, Rico got about a 12% damage buff, which in my opinion is absolutely nuts, and I don't see why they needed to give Rico such a big buff. Maybe like a 5 or a 6% buff would have been fine, but giving him a 12% damage buff is insane. I say this all the time, but Rico's one of those brawlers where if you are on the right map and you are very good with him, you will be able to dominate no matter what his current state of the meta is, because he's just that dominant of a brawler. He'll be able to bounce shots around walls, hit you from like the other side of the map when you're not even paying attention, and it's just annoying, and there's no brawlers that can really deal with him efficiently other than throwers who have no HP typically. So again, I don't understand why you needed to give a brawler like Rico that is pretty much meta independent, he's only map dependent, a big buff like this. It's kind of nuts. All right, next up is going to be Surge. He got about a 10% HP buff. I think that is perfectly fine. I don't play a ton of Surge. I don't really have an opinion about this either way. I will say I think Surge was probably one of the worst assassins in the game ever since Edgar got his hypercharge, so seeing him get a little love is nice, and if you're a Surge main, you're probably going to be happy with this no matter what. So congratulations, Surge mains. You got a buff. All right, let's move on. All right, next up is going to be one of the most confusing changes in this patch, and that's going to be Darryl. His projectile speed got a buff, and I just have a question. Why? Why did you buff something so weird for a tank brawler? Like, I don't get it. Like, Darryl's a brawler that just rolls in on people. You're point blank anyway, and you just unload 3 shots on them, and if you recharge your super, you roll out. And I don't know why you need a projectile speed to do that, unless it's like an unload speed and they just like conveyed that wrong or something, but projectile speed makes it sound like the actual pellets you're shooting move faster, which you're not really shooting at a distance when you're playing as Darryl anyway, so why? All right, and the last buff in this round of balance changes is going to be to Buzz. Now, according to my math, he got about a 9% HP buff. And again, this is another one that has me scratching my head, because why did Buzz need an HP buff? I felt like Buzz was probably one of the more like balanced brawlers in the whole game. And in fact, the only thing I would have changed about Buzz is actually a nerf to his stun radius, because when you land a stun anywhere, it feels like it can just like hit the entire map. It feels like you don't need to be anywhere near a brawler to stun them when you use his super, and that's obviously not the change they made. They decided to give him more HP, and I don't get it. Maybe he was lagging behind compared to other tanks that have gotten hypercharges or anything like that, but I don't think a 10% HP buff, or 9%, I don't think a 9% HP buff is the answer to him not having a hypercharge. The answer to him not having a hypercharge is him getting a hypercharge. Like, what are we doing here? But like I said, I think Buzz was perfectly fine. I don't think this change was actually needed, and it has me scratching my head like, what are they thinking when they're buffing these brawlers? So let's move on to the nerfs now. All right, so we're going to save Kit to the end because there's a lot to talk about with Kit, but we're going to kick this off with Bo. Now, Bo got 2 nerfs. First off, he got about an 8% damage nerf, and it was probably necessary because I did see a lot of chatter about Bo probably being one of the top 5 brawlers in the whole game. Somebody in my chat was, telling me to play Bo a couple days ago because he was really good, and I've seen, I think it was Ash's tier list where he had Bo in the top 5 or something like that, and it was like kind of weird because Bo is a brawler that's typically not considered a top brawler like ever, and he finally gets into the top 5, and it's a little unfortunate because now he's instantly getting hit with a nerf hammer. I'm not saying it was unjustified because, if a brawler is like dominant and, pros are talking about how good they are, they probably need a little bit of a nerf, so Bo is catching that nerf right now. On top of that, they also nerfed Bo's super recharge rate. They added an extra shot to that, so now he needs to land 3 full shots as opposed to 2.5. This is one of those changes that normally hits a brawler pretty hard. We see that a lot with like a brawler like Poco or Sandy. Those are 2 examples that pop out at the top of my head. They normally teeter around, I think, 4, 5, maybe 3 hits for Poco to charge their supers. And when they're on that lower end of that scale, they're really good. They're pretty OP. And when they're on the higher end of that scale, then they tend to fall off a lot in the meta. So seeing Bo catch that nerf is pretty significant. It's probably going to hurt him quite a bit. I think the damage is probably going to hurt him a little bit more because that was like the main thing that Bo does. The mines are mostly used for area control. So, having them is good, but I think the damage is definitely the thing that's going to hurt him a lot more. Next up, Rosa got a supercharge rate nerf. Now she's going to need to land 4 full shots as opposed to 3 full shots to charge her super. I think this was probably a justified nerf. You know, she does have a hypercharge, so she is pretty OP in that regard. Then you pair her with Kit, and people were just nasty. You know, Rosa's taking reduced damage. She's got Kit on her back healing her. Kit's doing damage. She's slowing you down and doing damage herself and just constantly recharging attacks. You know, it was probably a justified nerf. You know, she was probably getting a little OP with all those things combined. And I don't really hate this change. It's probably, like I said, probably necessary. So there's really not much more to talk about. I already said my thoughts on, you know, adding supercharge rate nerfs. So we're going to move on to Kit. There's a lot to talk about with him, so let's talk about that. All right, so there's a lot to talk about with Kit. So we're going to jump over into Brawl Stars and actually show the whole list. So this is the wall of text they dropped for Kit right here. Check this out. It's kind of nuts. So this is it. This is the whole wall of text that they dropped for Kit and his nerfs. And there's a lot to talk about. So let's kick things off with the top line. They reduced his damage. Now, according to my math, that's about 20%. I could be wrong. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not a mathematician. You can correct me about any of my numbers if they are wrong. But according to my math, that's about a 20% nerf. At max level, he's going to drop from 4,000 to 3,200 damage. And that's insane. The 20% nerf is nuts. But I will say it's not unjustified. He definitely needed that big of a nerf because being a thrower that Kit was when he's on somebody's back and doing 4,000 damage. I said this during Brawl Talk. I said this, you know, on stream the other day. It's nuts. That was way too much, and I don't disagree that he needed this type of nerf, so I'm perfectly fine with him catching this. He's still going to be able to 2-tap a lot of Brawlers. He'll still be able to 3-tap a lot of Brawlers, and, you know, you also have the people that you're being carried by doing damage. So perfectly fine. I love this change. Next up, there was 3 bugs with his supercharging. First off, there was an issue with the scaling when he had a couple power cubes. Next up, there was an issue where you were still getting an extra bonus charge while moving in your cat box. You're not supposed to do that. It was only supposed to be when you're standing still in the cat box. And the third was something about if you jumped off a friendly brawler, you could use your super like right away instead of having to wait the timer or whatever. All right, so a couple of things here. First off, I don't understand how these supercharge rate bugs actually slip through with these issues. We saw something very similar to this with like Hank, I believe. I think Hank had supercharging rates or scaling issues when he was first released. And it's like, isn't that like one of the most basic parts of a brawler's kit that you need to think of and make sure works? Like, how does this slip through into the live game? And then you take 2 weeks to deal with it. It's weird. It's a weird situation in my opinion. Next up, not being able to cycle supers after you jump off somebody. Like, what's the point of canceling the super early? I mean, I understand it makes you a more independent brawler when you jump off somebody. So like if you need to detach and like go off and finish a kill or something like that, whatever. But like, it's just weird. Like, I feel like you should be able to cycle supers pretty quickly when you jump off somebody. Unless I'm wrong and I'm misreading that situation. I'll be honest, I haven't played any kit today after the nerfs. So I don't know if like that was actually a situation. But yeah, that's just the way it's worded and the way I'm reading it just sounds weird. So I'm not a big, I don't understand it. I feel like that change wasn't needed. All right, so now I'm done complaining about Kit's super recharge rate. And the last 2 changes that I didn't mention yet are that Kit can now be damaged while he's attached to an enemy, and you can no longer attach to spawned enemy brawlers. Now, I'm okay with both of these changes. Not being able to attach to spawned enemy brawlers just makes sense. You know, they can't take damage anyway, so jumping on them also doesn't make sense. It does kind of suck if you try to jump on them and you waste your super, but, you know, that's just life. You know, you shouldn't do that, obviously. We're going to have to learn to adjust to that. So, like I said, that just makes sense. That change is fine. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with the not being able to take damage while you're attached to an enemy. I will agree that it was a very OP invincibility. Like, you know, Kit could just, you know, jump right on top of somebody and they're just stuck. They're stunned and the enemies can't save them at all. So I won't disagree that it was OP. But I will say it does make his super on enemies feel a little, like, useless now. Like, one of the nice things about it was that, you know, it was like, you know, like a get out of jail free card for you. If you got stuck in a bad situation, you could attach onto an enemy and then wait for your teammates to come and try to bail you out, which was nice. But also, I guess you could just use your super to jump away now because Kit does auto recharge super. So it's not like the end of the world or whatever. Like I said, I don't know if it was 100% necessary, but it does make his offensive capabilities a lot weaker. And I guess that's okay because they do want him to be more of a support than an assassin or whatever. So it's probably okay in the end of the day. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy with it. I just don't know if it was 100% necessary. And there you go. There is all the balance changes in this patch. And I'll be straight up with you guys. I don't really know if I love this round of balance changes. The buffs have me scratching my head like, why did these brawlers get buffed? Like Buzz and Rico. Those felt like kind of unnecessary in my opinion. And then like What's the point of the Darryl buff? I don't understand why Darryl needs a projectile speed buff. Like I said, you just kind of roll on people and you're at point blank range anyway with Darryl, so what difference does it make? And then as far as the nerfs, obviously Kit needed a nerf. Obviously Rosa kind of justified getting nerfed. And then the only thing I don't really love is why did Bo get nerfed? Like, I understand he was a little OP, but you hit him with 2 pretty heavy nerfs, and he finally got his time to shine, and you instantly nerfed him. So, not a big fan of the Bo nerf personally, but the other 2 were perfectly fine. Like I said at the beginning of the video, let me know what you think about these balance changes down in the comments. Let me know what brawler you love that got buffed. Let me know what brawler you love that got nerfed. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.